Hey, welcome to another episode of Grace and Truth with Johnny Rowlett.
Grace and truth comes from John 1:14, where it says Jesus was full of grace and truth. Join us today on this podcast as we dive into deep revelation and find ways to make it understandable, cowboy style, simple. That's the way I like it, and I hope you do too.
We wanted to make this about wrong thinking because that's the biggest snag I feel like in everyone's life is they get caught up in wrong thinking.
Right.
And they forget about all the things that they've learned. You know, when crisis hits, you just always go to
the circumstance.
Right, exactly. And you never focus
the experience
on, you know, just like you're taking a test in school. I know, like in school for me, I was the worst test taker because you feel like everything that you ever learned is completely gone out the window, and here you are staring at this page where you feel like you've learned nothing.
Yeah, it just left your brain. And we were kind of talking about, well, and that also just gets into the battle of the mind and how strong your mind is. And I think yesterday I thought the discussion that we had in the car is what kind of brought this whole idea onto me to record this. From the time that we're children, we get this whole performance-based kind of living our life. You think about even the idea of when's he gonna walk,
Right.
When's he gonna say his first words? What's normal? When did I even caught myself like, how will I asked you how old before she starts making sentences, our grandbaby obviously, how old does and it's this whole kind of perform, and then it goes into our school and getting report cards, getting grades, and Johnny talks too much in class. Did you ever get that? No, you never got that?
No.
You were the class clown?
Yeah.
You weren't the class clown.
No, I didn't talk. No.
What did you do? Just sat in the corner? Just sat there?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on if you're talking about elementary, junior high, or high school, because it's a whole different ballgame in each.
Things just switched.
Each switched, right.
So go ahead. So I'm just the thing is, we got this clean slate when we're born, and in essence, through life, other people start writing on our slate, and even we start writing on our slate, and start believing that we're not good enough, and that we're not up to standards, and we're comparing ourselves to other people, and then we you carry that through high school, and then into college, and then into your job,
or what you've heard from your family or somebody that you've always looked up to.
Right.
I mean, a lot of kids deal with whether they've been abused in any way, shape, or form, mentally, physically, sexually, whatever, and that is that stronghold.
Yes.
Mind thought process is carried with you throughout your entire life.
Yeah.
And so when you get stuck here, it's like the reason why you're stuck, if you look at the root of that thought process, it stems from all the way back from you when you were a child, or when you were a teenager, or when that impact happened.
Right.
And so you just get stuck in processing that thought over and over and over, and it's such the trick of the enemy to plant that seed every time something happens in your life, and you struggle with whatever it is that day that you struggle with. Then it's like the enemy plants seed.
Yeah.
Remember when you were told that you'll never amount to anything?
That's so
or
good.
You remember when this happened, it's because that was your fault.
Yeah, that was your fault. That person touched you, or that's your fault.
Exactly.
In essence,
and so,
it's building the wrong story.
Right.
You've spent your entire life allowing life circumstances to write on your board, to write your story out, and that's the false narrative. That's what the enemy has tried to make you believe is your story, and that's not who you are at all. That's not even the intention of God's story of who He created you to be. So it's like just in the natural realm, in our fleshly realm, we've had this narrative being written about us that comes from our circumstance, It comes from other people. It comes from, I love what you said, comparison to other people. Things that happened to us, things that we did. And all of those things are not even true.
Right. But for some reason, we can still be raised in church, and we'll learn all the Bible verses, and we'll learn all of, knowing where this comes from. And for whatever reason, we get stuck on the negative instead of the positive.
Crazy.
And when the thought process comes in, no, I'm the righteousness of God through Christ.
Right.
I'm not this that they said that I was.
Right.
Or I'm not this attack, or I'm not this
past mistake,
whatever.
Right.
No, I am this. I am all the promises of God,
That's so good. And it's just, you can see that it's almost like we were trained into it. I heard some guy speaking, and he said, we're giving ourselves our own test, and then we're grading our own test, and then somehow we're failing our own test. Wait, how did this? I remember one time my mom said, I was talking about this whole performance thing that's, and she's like, where did you get that? I don't remember being taught this. See, I think that's what I'm more, wanting to talk about is, I don't remember somebody sitting down and saying, this is who you are, and you talk too much, and you are, somebody told me one time, you have ADHD, and that's my thing, you are too much energy, all these kinds of things. And I guess my point is, I don't really remember that, but what I do remember is things like school. I remember that having to, the goal of getting straight A's or getting A's at all, you know what I mean? And then the fear and the stress and the anxiety that caused when I knew I wasn't going to get that, and that caused what I felt were issues between me and my teacher and me and my principal, and they looked down on me and they didn't consider me as high up or as trustworthy or whatever.
Right, and some of that comes from your own thinking,
Oh, that's good.
What I picture is, of course, you grew up in Arizona, you didn't have a lot of snow, but growing up in Michigan, when I was a child, we had a lot much more snow than they even do now.
Right.
And so you would start a snowball.
Oh, that's
and
good.
You would spin it into the other snow, and as it got bigger to make a snowman or whatever, and you would roll it, and it picks up the snow, but it also picks up the leaves, and it picks up the sticks and whatever's underneath there.
Oh, that's good.
And as it goes on down, and then if you make it go down the hill, whatever's on that hill, it picks it up as it goes along. And I feel like that's us in life, is that as we're going through life, we pick up things, and sometimes we don't even know how we picked it up.
Yeah, where'd that come from?
We're like, where did this come from? But it's then all of a sudden it's planted a seed, and it's grown its root system, and it's now become this full-on tree in our lives where we're like, we keep hitting it every time.
It's a root system.
Yeah, and then it's this whole root system that you're like, where I don't even know where this came from.
That's so good. And what was meant to start out of is this beautiful, clean snowball.
Right, yes. Pure as white as snow,
When we got done with it, it was a dirty mess, and it had rocks and stones and leaves and all kinds of trash sticking out of it. That's so good.
Exactly.
That's such a really good... And that's I just can see that beautifully, and now that's become part of your identity. Mm-hmm. And what Paul is saying is, take that off.
Right.
Take that off and put on your new man. So I was talking about this last night, and I just thought this was an interesting idea, is that from the foundation of the earth, you are chosen. You won. Like, you literally, the fact that you're here, that you watch a sunset and you are able to be on this earth and take in God's glory is miraculous. And I was listening to this one guy's a scientist, and he's not even born again. He didn't even realize what he was saying, but he's talking about, the fact that through our chromosomes, the potential of all the humans that could be on this earth are endless. And yet we've only had 140 billion people on this earth from the beginning. And yet, so out of millions of possibilities, there's only been 144 billion people actually make it. So that makes you and I a miracle. that we're here experiencing God's glory on the earth, and yet this thing that was this pure as snow, white thing, picked up all kinds of garbage to the degree that we lost our understanding of who we are. And now we're just dirty snow. You know, I just think that's, and you know, I think it's brilliant and an amazing picture to think that the fact that I can, with my eyes, look at my wife and see her creative beauty, and that I was chosen to get to see that and experience that as a human that is spirit man but wrapped in dirt, that I get to be here. I think we got to remind ourselves that our identity is in that. Our identity is in Christ. And then we start unpacking all that, and then we kind of clean our slate. So in essence, what Paul is saying is clean your slate, take off that old man, put on the brand new man, and then let God write our story. We were listening to Stephen Furtick, and he was talking about, you know, how easy it is. And even as we're sitting here, you know, we just tell people, just
stop doing that.
Stop. Quit it.
You know, even sometimes we just say change your channel, but sometimes we have to explain to them, what does that look like?
Yeah.
But the scripture says in Ephesians, I think it was Ephesians 4 something, that we were taught Christ.
Yes.
And so if we're taught Christ, what does that look like? We're taught to call on him no matter what.
Right.
So when we are struggling in our mind, or when we're struggling in our physical body, or when we're struggling
in our identity,
or whatever we're struggling with, that we call on Christ and he'll tap in and rescue us.
That's good.
You know?
That's good. I thought it was so fun. He had his son that's a wrestler, and his son was laying on him. And he said he was at this wrestling match, and there was this lady in the stands, and her son is on the mat and getting pinned. He's laying there, and her son's like, his mom's like, get up, you know, get up. And he's like, look, I could just, you know, see him looking up and going, I never thought of that.
Right.
Thank you. You know, my mother was my basketball coach, but then later on, you know, I can remember I was playing this guy, and he was like, I felt like he was 8 foot tall. You know what I mean? And she's like, get that rebound. I'm like, I'm trying. I'm over here trying. And I think sometimes we oversimplify. We oversimplify this and simplicate it.
That's simplify and complicate at the same time.
That's beautiful. We've come up with a new word. We have simplicated. We take something that's supposed to be so simple and we complicated it. So we simplicated it. So it's so beautiful that we take off the old and put on the new. But I know that a lot of believers it's not that we're not trying.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But how would we know how to do it?
Unless we're taught. Right.
Unless we're taught. And I think that's what I want this podcast and this video series to really be about, is how to change your channel, how to change your mind, how to renew your mind,
how to overcome strongholds,
how to walk in your identity. And all those are encompassed.
And not because we have it figured out, but because we are walking this journey every day.
What? I thought I had it figured. I have simplicated it.
Yeah.
We are walking, and that's it. I wish that more people would talk about that this is a journey.
Right.
It's a journey. We haven't arrived. It's a lifetime journey that we are learning, and to literally take off the old and put on the new. And it's a mindset, and it's a channel change, and but mostly it is, Father, what's your story? What is your story for me? What have you written out, already designed, already laid out my life? You chose me. You placed me here on this earth for such a time as this.
What does that look like?
What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
Even? Yeah. So I think that's a great intro. I just would ask you guys to join us join us on this journey as we are
in this conversation.
Yeah, the conversation. Yeah, put in some questions that you might have in the chat there, and let's talk about what it looks like, what Paul meant to take off the old and put on the new. What did Paul mean when he says it's no longer I that lives, but Christ that lives in me? What did Paul mean when he said it's Christ in me, and that Christ in me living through me is the hope of glory for the whole world? What do those mean? Instead of just taking these verses and haphazardly just throwing it out there, let's talk about actually implementing and applying them to our life. And right. I hope you come on this journey with us. And so you can tell we're just having a great time, and we hope that you join us having a great time with us. Until next time, grace and truth to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.